In this episode, we remember and demystify the matriarch of this country, Decoding Columbia. We then get the straight dope on St. Patrick, who he was, what he did, what it meant, and who made it a holiday anyway. We'll wrap it up with a review of the Southeastern Masonic Symposium and the call to action we all have. This week on Whence Came You. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Whence Came You, a Masonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry. Here's your host, Brother Robert Johnson.
Welcome back to the show. As you heard at the top of the show, we've got a great show for you. A couple articles, a new Masonic Minute, St. Patrick's Day themed from illustrious Brother Stephen L. Harrison. And so we'll go ahead and get right into it in just a few minutes. Let's cover a couple things in the news. Of course, the pandemic now has reached fever pitch here in the United States. President addressed the nation. All these things are happening, but why am I mentioning it on a Masonic podcast? I do have to apologize if you're totally sick of hearing about this, but we are seeing a number of Grand Lodge jurisdictions which are putting the meetings, stated meetings that is, in the hands of our lodges. And what I mean by that is they're saying, hey, it's up to you and your discretion if you choose to have a Masonic meeting with this COVID-19 pandemic happening. So all I can say is we want to make sure all of our brothers out there are being responsible. And as if you are not reminded enough, let's just keep washing our hands and keep our older members in our thoughts, because they are the ones who are most susceptible to this. And so we need to make sure that they're doing okay, check in on them, and all of that good stuff. So check in on our members, and let's do the best we can to get this thing over and done. All right, so it's time to pay the bills. How do we make this show happen? This show happens because you, the listeners, help us out. So how do you help us out, though? Well, since July of 2011, this podcast has been here waiting for you every Sunday night at 9:30 p.m. Consistency is the name of the game. We are creating weekly Masonic education for anyone interested in Freemasonry and its kindred sciences. This is not a small endeavor. It requires hours of work each week on top of what we all have, right? We have work, kids, spouses, and we've got a few ways to help support this show. Really, our two main ways are through donations. You can become a contributor, a fellow, or a producer, and you can do that through Patreon. We have a $2 a month contributor level. You get your name on our website as a contributor. If you're a fellow, that's a $5 a month donation, and that puts your name on the website. I send you a card in the mail. I handwrite these cards when you do those donations. I don't have these things filled out. They're not pre-printed. None of that. This is me really trying to say thanks. Meaningful thanks. And of course, the producer level. Our producer level is $10 a month. You get the name on the website, a thank you card in the mail, and also with that, I'll send you the producer's pin also. Now, that's on Patreon. We have a lot of people who like to support us through PayPal. We offer those same exact perks. The contributor, the fellow, the producer, with all the same stuff through PayPal, a subscription model. So you can do either one of those things, or you can make a one-time gift through PayPal and just say, hey, I'm going to send you $2, or hey, I'm going to send you $3 one time, whatever the case is. I appreciate all of it. It offsets the cost of this podcast. Something to keep in mind is that we also sell the producer's pin by itself. It's $10. I have a Mason's Lady decal, and of course the It's Business Time, Adapting a Corporate Path for Freemasonry book that I co-wrote with John Ruark that has rave reviews all over Amazon.com, and you can get it on Amazon, not autographed, and you can get it on Audible also. All of the money that comes in through this stuff offsets the cost of putting this program together. And I want you to remember that you're the producer of the program, and in the last 10 years, Masonic education has come a long way. Is it a coincidence? Maybe, but we have to keep this ship on course. We're always pushing for better lodge experiences, Masonic education, and this show offers a way to assist people in coming up with new ideas and things to bring to lodge and to educate new brothers and people interested in the craft. So I would just say, if you're already a producer, a fellow or a contributor, or you've donated cash at some point, or bought a pin, or whatever you've done for us, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, just one more time, I want to say thank you to all of our Patreon subscribers, our PayPal subscribers, and it really makes a huge difference whether you are a producer, a fellow, or a contributor. Thank you so much. Now let's get into the first education piece this week. This one comes from the Masonic Philosophical Society. It is by Axel Suvari and is about Columbia, an American Goddess. Originally published back in January 17, 2016, so just a few years ago. And let's get right into it. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch whose flame is the imprisoned lighting, and her name, mother of exiles from her beacon hand, glows worldwide welcome her mild eyes command, the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep ancient lands your storied pomp, cries she. With silent lips, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Emma Lazarus, 1883. If you were to ask the average American which mythical figure best represents the national character, most would reply with the household name Uncle Sam. The genial yet intimidating patriarch has dominated artistic and poetic descriptions of the American nation-state for 100 years. However, there is another, more deeply ingrained avatar of the American populace, the omnipresent Columbia, most famously depicted as the Statue of Liberty, upon which is inscribed Emma Lazarus' poem, reproduced above. Columbia was the mythical figure adopted by the founding generation of the early United States. After the defeat of the British in 1783, America found itself free from international harassment and wide-open frontier of unknowable bounty. What was needed was an icon, a symbol by which to galvanize and direct the consciousness of the American people. By the late 1790s, Columbia was born. Columbia quickly became a patron saint of manifest destiny, the doctrine of westward expansion embraced with genocidal fervor by the pioneers and politicians alike. Columbia's figure appears on or within many state and federal buildings constructed in the 19th century, usually cast in bronze and often pointing or facing west. She adorns the Wisconsin Capitol building, sculpted by the same Daniel Chester French who constructed the greatest rendition of Columbia in history, the 65-foot-tall statue of the Republic commissioned for the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition held in Chicago, Illinois. She reposes atop the Texas Capitol holding the sword of justice and raising aloft a blazing golden star. She lends her name to numerous towns across America. She is the patron of Columbia University, and the seat of governmental power stands in a district built in her honor, the District of Columbia. Columbia, as a symbol, is far too complex and deeply rooted to be ascribed as a creation of political machinations. Columbia is only the latest name given to a goddess who is older than recorded history and can be traced in her modern form to the early Egyptian dynasties. She has been known throughout history variously as Inanna and Ishtar by the Sumerians, Kali by the Hindus, Freya by the Norse, and most notably as Isis by the ancient Egyptians. She is the goddess of love, wisdom, warfare, and destiny, and is venerated by all cultures as the mother of civilization. In the original Egyptian telling of her tale, Isis is also the goddess of magic, friend of slave and aristocrat by equal measure. It was Isis that kept the veil of night cloaked about the light of wisdom, and It was her name invoked in the rites and rituals of the numerous fertility cults that sprang up along the bank of the Nile. The pentagram, or five-pointed star, the primary symbol of magical and initiatory societies across the world, is the shape traced in the heavens by the transit of the planet Venus throughout the year. In the Roman context, the parallels between Isis and the Western conception of the Virgin Goddess in her myriad of forms becomes starkly apparent. She has also enjoyed considerable veneration throughout history as a figurehead of Freemasonry, or as Manly Palmer Hall put it, the Virgin of the world. Numerous Masonic writers have expounded lengthy treatises on the Masonic symbolism inherent in the legend of Isis. It being so closely tied to the inner curriculum of Masonry, in the pre-Christian mystery traditions, wisdom was always depicted as feminine. In Greece, wisdom was personified as Athena, goddess of knowledge and crafts. The 7 liberal arts are given female representations, and the 9 muses invoked by countless artisans and artists are all of female form. For an organization with an historical opposition to the admittance of women, Freemasonry has an oddly persistent fascination with the feminine representation of the craft. It is often acknowledged that many, if not most, of the founding figures of early America were Freemasons. Could it be that this small group of men working with the vast repository of Masonic symbolism crafted a symbol to forge a specific path forward in the future? Is it coincidence that Columbia led the waves of settlers of the New World from sea to shining sea, transporting the light of civilization from its birth on the eastern horizon to its maturity in the west? Though she has been subsumed in popular understandings by the withered visage of Uncle Sam, Columbia keeps constant vigil from the forgotten and overlooked corners of American history and geography, a testament to a different time. She may remain cloaked behind the veil she draws so closely to her breast, yet the light of her torch still burns for those with eyes to see it. So how about that? I really love this because I love the idea of the great experiment in America and civics and uplifting the common man, the Masonic tenet of justice, of bringing somebody lower up to your level, which is more important than coming down to somebody, right? Because you want to improve them. So it's more important to bring them up. That whole idea espoused in Emma Lazarus's poem from 1883 is there. And it's an amazing, amazing, uplifting feeling for many people who read that poem. I still get chills every time I read it. Toward the center of this, we talked a little bit about who Columbia is throughout the different cultures. And we've talked about this before, and maybe it's a new term for you, but it's called archetypes. So it's a similar construct that is virtually, I say virtually the same in different cultures around the world. And we like to pretend that these are independent pop-ups, but it's likely that there's a common thread that's older than everything, and that these cultures adapted the form, in important form for them, into a way that was recognizable and relevant to the culture it's being told in. So out with Uncle Sam, in with Columbia. How about that? Washington, D.C., Washington, the District of Columbia. All right, let's hear from our illustrious brother, Stephen L. Harrison, for this special edition of the Masonic Minute.
Every school kid learns March 17th is the day we celebrate the life and deeds of Maewyn Succat, the second Bishop of Ireland, who is better known as Ireland's patron saint, St. Patrick. Those same school kids also learned Patrick's great triumph was chasing the snakes out of Ireland. It's true, there are no snakes in Ireland. However, that's more likely because there never have been any snakes on the isolated island. Captured and taken into slavery as a youth, Maewyn, also known as Patrick, escaped to the European mainland. While a slave, he had converted from paganism to Christianity, and once on the continent he sought refuge at Malmentir Abbey, a French monastery. There he accepted his calling, which was to convert other pagans to Christianity. With that, he returned to Ireland and became very successful at making those conversions. In a manner of speaking, the serpents he figuratively chased from Ireland were the pagan druids, not actual reptiles. After a successful ministry, Patrick retired to County Down, where he died on March 17, 461 AD. Although never officially canonized by the Catholic Church, he is in fact recognized as a saint, and today we celebrate the feast of St. Patrick, or St. Patrick's Day, on the anniversary of his death. However, even in Ireland prior to the late 18th century, St. Patrick's Day was not that big of a deal. The same was true in North America, where the churches in Boston, with its large Irish population, didn't recognize the day until 1737. So what, you may ask, does this have to do with the Freemasons? Well, about 20 years later, during the French Indian War, a young Masonic colonel recognized the morale among his troops was low and decided they needed what today we would call some downtime. It was March, at the end of a long, brutal winter, and many of the troops were Irish. It didn't take the colonel long to figure out the best day to declare a general holiday would be St. Patrick's Day. Several years later, that same Freemason, now a general in the American Revolution, faced a very similar problem. Billeted in Morristown, New Jersey, his troops were discouraged after a long winter of devastating fighting and losses. On top of that, the preceding winter of 1779 to 80 was brutally cold. That general, George Washington, again had many Irish troops under his command, and once again he saw the opportunity of celebrating St. Patrick's Day to boost morale. With that, Washington issued the order giving his troops their first day off in over 2 years, issuing this proclamation. The general directs that all fatigue and working parties cease for tomorrow, the 17th instant, a day held in particular regard by the people of Ireland. The respite from the ravages of war and winter went over well with the troops, some of whom were said to celebrate with a hogshead of rum. Washington is credited with establishing the first instances of a secular celebration of St. Patrick's Day, a tradition which caught on and has grown to become a major event today, with the hogshead of rum long replaced by freely flowing green beer. For the Whence Came You podcast, this is Steve Harrison with the Masonic Minute. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Wow. I don't know about you, but I found that fascinating to get some additional history on the actual occurrence of St. Patrick and putting that together with how somebody in the Masonic sense, just by connection, George Washington and his contemporaries, fueled what is now largely celebrated. There's a large upset right now in Chicago because they've canceled the Chicago St. Patrick's Day Parade. Of course, I'm fine with that because I'm not much for that kind of a party. However, a hogshead of rum, now that I could maybe get behind. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. If you enjoy it, please head on over to our YouTube channel where you can subscribe to all of our episodes here are on YouTube as well. But we also have these great videos of the Masonic Minute that illustrious Brother Harrison has graciously put them together for us, and we host them there as well. They are also on his YouTube channel. So I hope you all have a safe and happy St. Patrick's Day. Celebrate your Irish heritage. They say everybody's a little Irish on St. Patrick's Day. Now, the next piece I have is from the Midnight Freemasons, and it's a piece that I published last Friday. So if you're curious and you want it for your lodge education, or you want to share it with your brothers and inspire them to do something amazing, then you know where to find it. But this one is called Masons Descend on Florida by Midnight Freemason contributor Robert H. Johnson. And here we go. On March 7th, 2020, a lodge in Florida opened its doors to Freemasons from around the world. Brothers from Arizona, Nebraska, Illinois, Michigan, Virginia, and even Germany were present, not to mention a multitude from the Tampa area and around Florida. As Masonic conventions go, pop up all over the country. It's only natural that brothers ask themselves, why can't we do this? And that's just what worshipful Billy D. Schmidt did. Billy wasn't even the master of his lodge when he started to think about putting on the Southeastern Masonic Education Symposium. He had his plans, and as fate would have it, the backing of his secretary, Tom, and the Brothers of Hillsborough Masonic Lodge number 25. Hillsborough Lodge lies right smack in downtown Tampa, Florida. The hustle and bustle of many big cities are not evident here. It's not overly dense in population. It's clean, and that local business flair is evident. Small shops, boutiques, and restaurants lining the streets. The only downside? Some places are only open Monday through Friday when the corporate folks are in town. That seems to be the same way in most big cities, though. Nestled in a row of connected building space that seems to be an entire city block is the lodge. Beyond the brass doors lay a foyer that would fit my home lodge inside of it. As you walk in, past masters stare at you from the walls, and you pass through 2 brazen pillars. Up the staircase, which leads to a massive common area complete with a pool table, several areas for lounging, offices with glass panes and expertly painted letters, Worshipful Master. There's also a secretary's office and many other rooms and vaults. It's amazing. Of course, this doesn't do it justice. The lodge room is as impressive as you can imagine. Ceilings that remind me of the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts, a lodge room with a gallery that seats over 400 people, blue carpet, modern lighting, and all the traditional elements that make you fall in love with the architecture and history of the craft. I flew in on Friday evening and met John Ruark at our hotel. We dropped our things off and walked 3 blocks to the lodge on a cool evening. Floridians were cold. John and I being from Illinois and Virginia, were comfortable. After arriving and shaking the hands of a few local brothers, we assisted in setting up some things and met our friend and brother Juan Sepulveda of the Winding Stairs and the Gentleman's Brotherhood. He was busy setting up his art. After some great conversation and fellowship, we all went back to the hotel to get rested up for the day ahead of us, the symposium. Of course, I watched some Rick and Morty and read a little before falling asleep. My phone rang at 8:05 a.m. Good morning, sunshine. It was John. I was 5 minutes past our designated meeting time to walk to the lodge. I got ready in nearly record time and walked to the lobby. 15 minutes. Not too bad. John was the first to present that morning, and he did a wonderful job. His presentation was on the circumpunct and its esoteric origins and symbology. He unveiled some amazing concepts which truly had brothers asking questions. Next up was me. I did my presentation on esoteric origins and different wisdom schools with an emphasis on Freemasonry. After this was Brother Nick Harvey. Nick, in a very charismatic way, spoke about a Mason's legacy. He asked us repeatedly, who is performing your Masonic funeral? It made us think about our relationships with brothers and reflect on the impression we might be leaving behind for them to remember. He also was witty as heck, with a few jokes that left us in stitches. Nick was great. We all adjourned for lunch. John and I escaped for a quick lunch at a bistro located in the old federal court building. The words United States of America prominently displayed into the front of the massive stone facade. After lunch, Jason Richards, who was unable to be present physically, presented via the web. His presentation on the multiple flood mythologies in the world and their relation to Masonic degrees was as amazing as always. I've seen it 3 times now, and each time he adds to it, making me more interested each time. Simply fascinating. I wonder when History Channel will call up Jason Richards to be on an episode of some show, or better yet, give him his own. The final presenter of the day was John Nagy. Some of you know him as the Coach. John's a business and life coach in his professional career and is a wonderful presenter. His presentation had some great twists and turns, but mainly focused on the contextual meaning of words and ritual. This presented problems. We're not actually doing what we're supposed to be doing because the meaning of words has changed over time. After John was done, I made my way to the common area and picked up 2 of his books, The Craft Unmasked and A Brother Asks, Volume 1. I'm looking forward to diving in after my current books. We closed out the day with a live taping of the Masonic Roundtable. John, Juan, and I, along with a lodge full of members, hung out together to talk about Masonic conferences. Then, we brought on the Worshipful Master Billy Schmidt to get his thoughts. You can find that episode coming to the YouTube channel soon or via our podcast. There will be a short wait since we do need to put it together. After this, we retired to dinner where conversations ensued, stories were told and then topped, and inspiration flowed. The conversations and inspirational ideas from guys attending were, for me, the best. Hearing the impact that events like this have on local brothers who crave a better experience solidified my inclinations. This is the future. To the brothers of Hillsborough number 25 in Tampa, Florida, thank you. You're making a huge impact on Freemasonry in Florida, but also a beacon. I think about the other places that are doing these conventions, and I imagine them like a giant Masonic bat signal being shown into the night. They're saying, "We're here." The more conventions we have, the more that light adds to the others to illuminate the world. The verbiage from Ritual paraphrased is coming to mind. That light when added to the coming light. We'll see you at the next convention in Attleboro, Massachusetts, Masonicon 2020. You can follow Hillsborough Masonic Lodge number 25 on their social media accounts. They are on the web at hillsborough25.org. They're on Facebook, Hillsborough25, on Twitter at Hillsborough25, and on Instagram at Hillsborough Lodge 25. Robert H. Johnson. So those are my thoughts on this latest symposium that I had the honor of attending. All I can say is that if you want to do something like this, then you should do it. It's up to you. It's up to your lodge to just put it on and make it happen. And that's largely how all of these started. So I hope you enjoyed. That's it for this week. I think I will be ready to release another installment of the Occult Profile series. The next one up will be Arthur Edward Waite, looking on publishing that sometime in the next week or two, likely by Wednesday is what I'm hoping. Thanks again to all of our contributors, our producers, and our fellows who make this show possible. So just make sure you're checking out the Masonic Roundtable every Thursday night, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central. We're live on YouTube, and you can follow it on Facebook as well. So we've gotten quite an audience following there. We interact with the audience, and we're having a lot of fun. The other thing I'd ask you to do is, I did mention the Midnight Freemasons here, so check them out Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And lastly, please check out the MasonicLegacySociety.com. It's not a scam or anything like that, I can assure you. I'm the webmaster there. If you would like to check that out, please do. Check out the tools section. There'll be more coming soon. But really what we're about there is just trying to make everything a little bit more meaningful. So please check all of that out. And next week, we'll probably have a big announcement on the show. So you'll want to catch that. And until then, stay on the level and wash your hands. I hope you guys all stay safe, take care of yourselves, and look out for our older brethren and those immunocompromised folks that we all know. Take care. Until next week, I'm Robert Johnson for the Whence Came You podcast.
You've been listening to Whence Came You, a Masonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry with your host, Brother Robert Johnson. Be sure to join us for our next edition.